Podcast, the monthly dog discussion, storytelling, memory show. I'm your host, Ilya Alexev, and I am with a friend of mine today, Aaron. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Yusa. Pleasure to be here.
So today we are here to discuss primarily your dog, but we can talk about both your dogs. So I guess to start, a few months ago you got a new dog.
That's right. So I moved to a new area down in San Diego, California, and I adopted my dog Kaya. Had her for about 8 months now, and she's about 7 years old now.
Okay. And so you moved, and so like, was that one of your goals while moving was to get a dog? Like, kind of like before you actually moved, like, did you have that intention?
Yeah, that was always actually something that I used to dream about, was that I would, like, if I lived alone, I would get a dog, and I would just have a dog wherever I moved. And so because I had my own place, and it was just a totally new area, I thought it'd be awesome to finally kind of live that out.
So was that kind of like one of the first things you did once you were kind of settled, was start looking?
Yeah, so my logic with this was that because I was going to get a rescue, I was worried that that he or she would destroy the furniture. So I got the dog before I got any furniture. So the first, I moved in with just a futon, and then I said, okay, this is the time to get a dog. So, and this is kind of a side note, but they actually, the place I adopted her from, they do a house check to make sure that your place is suitable for a dog. And they came in, and it was just an empty apartment.
So they're like, what's up with this guy? Is he some sort of like drug dealer or something, or what is he?
Yeah, and they're like, so how long have you been here? And I was like, yeah, about 2 weeks now, and that my futon is in that room. And yeah, so that was pretty much the first thing I got in the apartment.
Okay, yeah, so 2 weeks. And so this wasn't like the Humane Society, right? Like it was just some other organization.
Yeah, so this was a place called the Barking Lot in El Cajon, right outside San Diego proper. And so they partner with a foundation called the Soy Foundation, and that foundation takes rescues from across Asia from different dog meat facilities. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, so the Humane Society partners with the foundation too, so you can get dogs from situations like Kaya's at the Humane Society, but this was specifically through the Barking Lot.
Okay, cool. Yeah, my only experience has been through the Humane Society, but it's cool. Like the last episode we had was Jack, and he was saying we started talking a little bit about the end about like getting dogs from breeders, because that's where his came from. So definitely the opposite of that, but that's good. So was there any like thing in particular you were looking for, like in a dog? Like obviously it's a rescue dog, but like specific size, breed, like personality.
Yeah, so Kaya is a Husky Jindo mix, and a Husky is kind of a dog I've always wanted to have. In terms of size, I was limiting it to 35 pounds at the max, and I wanted kind of a medium to larger size dog, but I was limited by the apartment requirements. It turns out, I found out later that people in my apartment have Mastiffs, and the landlady just doesn't care, so yeah. I was just more sensitive to it than anyone else, so I was trying to get as close to that 35 pound limit as I could. And so I think the real thing in terms of what I was looking for is, and you mentioned breeders a little bit, I definitely wanted to rescue. I think it's just you kind of have you meet a lot of interesting personalities that way, I think, as opposed to just like this dog was bred and this is its breed and this is what it acts like. You have dogs that come from really different situations, and kind of the situation they come from really gives them a unique personality, and it's really interesting to see how they can grow and develop around you. In terms of why I went for like a Husky Jindo, I met probably 15 dogs at this place. They give you, this place is really interesting. They give you like one-on-one time for like an hour with the dogs. I spent a lot of time looking, and most of these dogs were just really, really messed up. So
yeah.
The majority of them I couldn't even get close to, because you walk in a room and it's a pretty large room, and they'll be in the corner just shaking, just violently shaking. And so you kind of try to like give them treats and all that thing, but most of them won't even eat. And so
Oh wow.
there was pretty much a handful. It came down to like 3 that I could actually interact with, that started having a connection with, and Kaya was one of them, and so just ended up going with her. And it so happened that it's nice that I kind of have, like, she's a husky mix, like a tiny husky, and that's a breed I've always kind of wanted to experience. So that's cool as well.
Yeah, what just popped in my head was you've probably seen those videos where it's like someone meets their dog for the first time and it's like shaking and can barely like handle itself, and then maybe, I don't know, months or years later when they actually adopt him, the dog's like extremely happy, and it's like, it's like the complete 180. So was that something you were trying to like find, or you just wanted to like just a rescue in general?
Yeah, growing up, we'd always had rescues-ish, I would say. We never went to a breeder. So the dog I had as a childhood was I guess was a rescue at birth, but we got her later in life, and so she was, at that point, she'd been just totally normalized, I would say, and she was great. And then we got a dog from the Humane Society for a little bit, and the dog, a dog that we currently have, a family dog, was a rescue from the Milo Clinic over in the Bay Area. In terms of like kind of that experience you're describing, I think it's just that there's a lot of dogs. And there's a lot of
that's always been my logic.
Yeah, I don't blame people for going to a breeder, because some people really know what they want.
Yeah.
But I think all breeds of dogs can be really interesting and really cool. And when there are so many available that would just really be put down if you didn't adopt them, I think it just makes sense to look.
Yeah. When we were adopting Dewey, he was close to being sent to like some sort of like dog farm or something, like in like Stockton or something like that. So for context, like a ways away from like the San Francisco Bay Area, kind of like more towards the middle of nothing. Sorry, if anyone's from there. Yeah, so I was gonna say is that you've had experience with dogs, like you grew up with dogs and stuff, so it's like it wasn't anything foreign to you. So I guess that fits in right with you wanting. You said that you dreamed of having a dog. Literal dreamed, or just kind of like, when I move out, I'm gonna get a dog. Like,
it was both. Yeah,
oh, really?
Yeah, it would be
wow.
It'd be like, oh, I'm definitely getting a dog, but also I'd have dreams where I'd just be like in a new place and have a dog. And that's, you're probably right. That probably is just because I grew up around them. But I always felt the first dog I had was a Border Collie mix, and she was a phenomenal dog. But she was really very much my dad's dog, very like loyal to my dad. And I was a kid, so I would always try to play with this dog, and she just did not like playing. That was really not her thing. And so I think, kind of stemming from that, I'd always wanted my own dog. That was
okay,
my dog.
Yeah. So it was more of like that angle. Like it wasn't something you're like, I'm moving away, living by myself. I need to have like someone with me. It wasn't quite that, was it? Or maybe a little bit?
No, I don't think. I think I would have been fine alone without a dog, but it was just one of those things where and I should say San Diego is the most dog friendly place I've ever been. So I didn't really know San Diego that well until I moved there. And I started going places and going out, and people had dogs in the restaurants. My apartment complex, over half of the people have dogs, so I would just see them all over. And I was like, this is my chance to kind of live that dream and actually get one.
Yeah, I think some people, like the Bay Area is a fairly dog friendly area too, but I think like, you think of San Diego, you think of beaches and warm weather, and so it's like there's sand getting everywhere and people's like gross feet in sandals, and it's like, to me it's not too much of a stretch. Like, okay, we'll just have a dog and assume that the dog's behaved well enough not to just like jump and steal someone's like burrito or whatever.
It's because people are so messy. That's what you're saying.
No, because it's like not. I didn't want to make it sound so negative.
No. But you're right. It's like there's a beach culture around it, and one thing that's really cool about San Diego is there's a lot of dog beaches, and so there'll just be these like beautiful beaches that have just hundreds of dogs running around. And it's not just like one of those. There's like 4 or 5 dog beaches, all pretty close to each other.
Yeah, that sounds great. Do you ever go to those?
Yeah, I took Kaya there a couple times pretty early on. I haven't gone lately, but it's pretty cool because you can just let like, so I'll just let Kaya off leash and she'll just walk around and kind of explore. The challenge I have with taking her to heavily crowded dog areas is that she's like frightened of other dogs, and so she's really interested in them, but I guess so, kind of a habit she developed from being in a meat farm is that they run these dogs in these larger mud lots, and they learn to set their own boundaries. So she has basically this really, really scary snarl, I would say, whenever a dog comes up to her. So even though she's not like an aggressive dog, she'll go to a dog beach, and so golden retrievers, for instance, are just some of the friendlier dogs, and they'll come up to her, and she'll just bare her teeth and basically act like she's about to attack this dog. And so it sort of leads to these situations where people are like, why is your dog at the dog beach? And so
yeah. So we're kind of bouncing all over the place, but since you brought that up, how does that make you feel? Because sometimes Mikey isn't the best. Like, he wants to play, and maybe he likes other dogs, but maybe he misinterprets their body movements and their reaction, body language, and then there starts some barking, and then it just, like, I don't know. For me, it always feels awkward when that happens, and like, I don't want Mike hurting anyone's dog. So like, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, I'm always on edge with like, is Kaya going to do something that I don't expect? Because I've had her for 8 months now, so I know her behavior pretty well. But there's 6.5 years of like of history behind that, and so it does make me nervous. What is kind of nice though is that she doesn't actively run after dogs, and she doesn't really take too much interest. So it'll generally be another dog that comes up to her and tries to play with her, and then she'll give a snarl and maybe a snap, and so other people will get really, really nervous about it. But in those instances, I at least know that, like, oh yeah, my dog didn't run up to your dog. My dog just doesn't want to.
Yeah. My dog wasn't being aggressive; it was just being defensive.
That's right.
Okay, so let's kind of step back and go like back to the kind of beginning. So she's one of 3 dogs you said that are realistically adoptable at that point. And so you meet her. Like, how is that kind of like initial meeting?
Yeah, so I had met this. I'd gone from meeting this one dog that I liked a lot, but was clearly just probably a little too far gone for me to bring into the apartment at that point. When they bring them to this parking lot area, it takes months before they really can probably be adopted. And so with this one, so I'd met this dog Denim before, and
Denim.
Denim was the name, and he was great, but he was not ready to be adopted. I just couldn't make enough like of a connection there. One of those things where I couldn't get him to eat a treat, for instance, or be like, or even make physical contact. So then I asked the person, I'd seen, they basically have a list and like pictures and names and description, and I was like, okay, what about, and I actually did end up changing Kaya's name. So Kaya's original name was Rome, and so I said, okay, how about Rome? And so they told me she's going to be really standoffish, and it's going to be like worse than Denim. You're not going to be able to like even interact. And then so they let her in, and like right away she ran up to grab a treat, and like we were like pretty friendly at the point, so we just kind of naturally got along well. She was scared of other people, but because we had kind of that immediate connection, it was a lot easier to just kind of just get to know her.
So you said it was like a big room. So there's like other people looking at dogs too?
No, so it's actually so other people look at dogs, but they'll bring you into a private room for some. For some of the kind of the ones that are not as well adjusted. Okay. So the way it works is it's really strict because a lot of these dogs, like a lot of these dogs come from like really awful situations. So, for instance, they will give you a wristband like that attaches to the leash, and they will put it on to make sure that like and I should back up. So you can meet the dogs outside or inside, and if you meet them outside, they actually put like something on your wrist, and like you can't put it on there yourself because they want to make sure that if you have the dog outside, they're not going to run, because there's a high flight risk with these dogs. And so for some of the ones that you can interact with outside, they'll do that, and then other than that, you'll have a room that's just you and the dog. And it is a slow process, but you just kind of go one at a time, and other people take their turns, and you just wait. Once you adopt a dog, it's also continues to be strict. You actually have to loan a GPS tracker off of the barking lot, and you have to have your dog wear it. So the concept there is that they've had a lot of instances where these dogs will just jump out the window or find a way to escape. And so they want to have the GPS tracker to be able to track them down pretty quickly.
We had some experience with Mr. Dewey like that. Mikey, on the other hand, loved it here. He knew he was home. So, was it kind of like disheartening for you, like seeing all these dogs? Because it's like one of those things where it's like we know, like in general, like bad stuff happens, but seeing it is.
Yeah, it was actually emotionally really heavy. I mean, I guess I should have expected it, but doing it for a whole day, because it does take a long time, was just really draining. Would come back at the end like, wow, this is really sad. And it's one of those things where most people would say like, don't eat dogs, right? That's a pretty that would be a really like popular opinion here. But there's that thought like, okay, but what about like you eat cows, you eat chickens, pork, like what makes it different to eat in a different culture? And there was definitely something about seeing just how emotionally scarred a lot of these dogs were that was really brought it home to me, that it really gave me a tangible like, yeah, this is just to me like really unacceptable.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point, because I mean, we live in urban areas. We don't really interact with cows or chickens or pigs in any form of the way. So that's kind of like a topic for a different show. But so you finally got her, right? Like, so you meet her and you're like, things are going well. Oh yeah, sorry. Now I totally remember what I was gonna say. So dogs are basically like the epitome of like positivity and like excitement and joy. So yeah, like I could definitely get that contrast of the being worn down after that. So you spent some time with her, you gave her that treat, and then you're like, all right, I'm feeling good. Like, were you like determined like to get a dog from that place, or did you think like, if it didn't work out, there's plenty of places?
Yeah, I figured there'd plenty of places, but they had so many dogs, and I had met a lot of cool ones. And again, there were only a few that were realistic for my situation, but I was pretty confident I was going to get something from that place. And I wasn't binding myself to, I have to get a dog, but it was something I really wanted.
Did they tell you, like anything, like, dogs typically have to stay here a few months before they're ready, or some dogs are never ready? Were they telling you stuff like that?
No, they really avoid that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I can imagine why.
They would bring a dog out, like, they'd be like, Leilani was one of the dogs, and they were like, oh yeah, Leilani's a little skittish, is what they said. And I was like, oh, okay, a little skittish. Like, I've met skittish dogs before. They brought her on a leash, and she's running, like, basically digging into the ground, trying to run away from, like, back into the door that they brought her out of. And they're, like, dragging her, and, like, she is frantic. She can't stay still. She's constantly just, like, running, and, like just the most scared dog I've ever seen. And they're like, oh, and they'll be smiling, like, oh, I guess she's just not ready yet, right? Okay, and I'm just frightened. Like, this dog is scared for its life.
Like, did it ever seem like they were trying to, like, I know this may sound bad, like, hope that the dog, shows well so, like, it could get adopted? Like, maybe they realistically know that the dog isn't ready that, like, in overall, but maybe one day the dog may have a good day. Did you ever get that vibe?
Yeah, I did, actually. So
that's really bad.
This is run by, like, this place is run by volunteers, and they're great. I really like them, but it's like I think they care more about the dogs than maybe your experience with the dog. So they're like,
Okay.
they want them to get adopted, and I think they have good reason, because I think generally when people do adopt them, they might think like, I'm not ready for this, or this is too much work, but people generally find it really rewarding to go and take a troubled dog and kind of integrate them into a family, let's say. And so a lot of people would be afraid of it, and so they, I think they kind of are like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, and maybe don't talk about the reality as much, with the expectation that them selling it will give the dog a better life. So I do think they do a little bit of that.
How much like questioning did they ask you about like your like were they asking you like, have you had dogs before? What's your kind of experience?
Yeah, so this place again is ridiculous. They actually you have to fill out an online survey before you can even go in.
Oh, like a questionnaire or
it's
something?
a questionnaire, and they ask questions just like that, like what other dogs have you had? What happened to them? What's your favorite thing about a dog? What's your living situation? What's your income? Like questions like that.
And there's no decline to state, huh?
There's no decline to state. And so if you actually, I read the reviews for this place before I went, and they're awful, because a lot of people got rejected off of the initial questionnaire.
Yeah, and but it makes so much sense, right? Because there's someone who's going to see a dog that they think is cute or whatever, and like, I can help this dog, but in reality, the person couldn't handle it. So it totally makes sense. Yeah, but anyway, back to the important stuff. So you met her, you gave her a treat, and then you're like, this is going well? Like, did you spend an hour with her?
Yeah, so I met her one day, spent an hour, and then I didn't take her home the same day. I came the following weekend and met with her and another dog that I had liked, and both of them were great. It really came down to, I was going to be working a lot, and Kaya was a little bit older than the other dog, and Kaya was more of a loner, and that just made sense with my living situation. So I met, then I hung out with him for another hour. So Kaya walked her around the block, and then basically brought her home.
So, how was kind of like that car ride home? Was she crated or anything, or just on the seat?
So I brought her onto the seat, and it was a bit nervous getting her into the car, because again, I don't really know. She's very skittish at that point, and wasn't really sure if she was gonna bite me. I didn't feel comfortable lifting her up, for instance. So I kind of had a leash for her and just kind of slowly careened her into the passenger seat. And so brought her into the passenger seat, just started driving, and actually when I got home, or by the time I got home, something that I never experienced with the dog is I learned that she has really bad car sickness. So my first interaction with her is that she puked all over the passenger seat, and they had stuffed her full of treats, because I think when they tour the dogs around, they're constantly giving them treats.
Okay.
It just smeared across the entire seat, and I had already been like, did I really make a good decision here?
How close were you to your place when she barfed?
So she barfed like when I was on the freeway, and it was kind of on the it was unlike the like the cup holder area, and it was a little bit of barf, and I was like, oh, like she's just a little car sick, like this will be really easy to clean up. But then when I parked, she started gagging, and I was like scrambling to try to get her out of the car, but I didn't make it. And so she did a much larger one where she emptied pretty much her entire stomach, and she did it on the backrest. So she at the top of the backrest, so then it fell down and smeared across the entirety of it.
Okay, but it wasn't like you got in the car and then like 2 minutes later she barfed and you have like an hour to drive and you're like, well, okay, so it wasn't that bad. So did you go? You take her inside your place and then you start cleaning up, or
yeah, exactly. So I brought her in my place and I just left her there, being like, all right, you're gonna learn this place now. And then I went to go clean up her vomit.
So like in your head, were you kind of like you mentioned, like, did I make a mistake? But were you like kind of thinking that over and over again, or were you just kind of like, it's just barf? Like, what was your thought process?
I was thinking, like, I thought this is going to be a funny story. It's really like, I was like, this is a real pain.
If I'm ever on a podcast one day, I have this in my back pocket.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
determined to be the best episode on the podcast, and I was like, vomit some more, Kaya. Keep going.
So, like, you finished cleaning up? Are you feeling kind of like flustered, annoyed, or worried?
Yeah, I was annoyed. Definitely, it took forever to clean up, and I didn't have any of the tools like ready for it. I didn't have any. I didn't have like car cleaning like scrubs or anything. So I had paper towels and bottled water, and I brought some like dish detergent or something, or soap, hand soap, just whatever I could find in my apartment. And again, I didn't have anything in my apartment, so
So how was she like in your apartment right away? Like, was she kind of just like walking around, smelling around? I mean, not much to look at, right?
Yeah, so she was really curious. There wasn't really anything there, but she was kind of exploring all the areas, just kind of getting the lay of the land, sniffing everything. And then when I was there, she kept a very large perimeter. So she was always kind of interested in where I was, but she would never get close.
How long did that last?
So the first night I had her, she, when I went to bed on my futon, she slept like looking through the hallway, but at the opposite end. Okay. So there was plenty of places she could have been, but she just chose to like be in eyesight, but like on the opposite end. And then over time, pretty much the second night, she was in the same room, opposite corner. And then by a week, she was sleeping pretty regularly in the same room and like pretty open to physical contact.
Did you have like a dog bed for her?
I had a blanket that I set out for her. And it took her a while to get to that blanket. And I basically, so yeah, actually that's a good point. I would put the blanket in comfortable places for her, and then I would just slowly move it closer, and she would sleep on it.
Okay, so she kind of like learned like, this is where I sleep.
Yeah.
And then you were moving it closer to you.
That's right. And actually she picked up on that right away. Pretty much the first night I brought out the blanket, she would sleep there. Or a second night or so.
So I guess we just kind of glossed over it a little bit, but like, kind of like, how is her like personality? Like, describe her a little bit more.
Yeah, she's very much like a cat, and that was one of the first things I noticed. And everybody that meets her says basically your dog's a cat, which kind of sounds like an insult to me because I'm not really a cat person. And you know, when people have cats that like them, they always say my cat's more like a dog. So it always seems like an insult. But she's very she kind of if she likes somebody, she'll more like graze past them. She's not like a classical like puppy that would just jump on somebody or like wag their tail. She kind of takes interest in people and then slowly just kind of comes up to them and prefers their presence more than anything else. She's very shy still, but she's coming out of her shell, definitely. So her personality is she's kind of like a quiet, very loyal dog that takes a while to trust people, but when she does, just sticks around them and really likes to be around them.
Did they require you to do training?
No, they don't require it at the barking lot where I got her, but
okay.
I actually did take her through training, and I mean, if you want to spend some time talking about that was
we can do that.
It was interesting because I brought her in for I went to Petco since I live very close to one, and the people at Petco were great. It was kind of like this second like dog family sort of thing. And so I met the trainer. She was really cool, and she had recently adopted like a very troubled dog from Tijuana. That's another common thing that people who are looking for rescues will do in San Diego is
go to Mexico.
Exactly. There's a lot of the Humane Society is full of dogs from Tijuana, of all breeds, generally Chihuahuas though. And you know, she had recently adopted this dog, and she was a mess and like kind of going through a lot of the same problems that like you know you would see from one of those rescues. And so this you know, Kaya would not really respond to commands. She wasn't really like, it wasn't like you got a dog that knew how to sit or stay or any of those things. And so basically this was the trainer's, as she described, the hardest dog she had ever trained, and she was really passionate about trying to get it down. Like it was kind of a challenge and like something for her to try to accomplish.
Okay, cool. And like, so what was kind of like the training? Was it just like basic commands and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so So, kind of skipping ahead, I ended up having a lot of issues with Kaya's separation anxiety, which is something that I hadn't really expected. You know, she's a dog that really didn't have a lot of positive experiences with people, and so I thought, you know what, we'll have a positive experience, and I'll give her plenty of space, and she'll just be able to chill whenever she wants. But she ended up getting really attached really quickly, and then whenever I was away, it ended up being really hard for her. So that was something that that ended up being a real challenge for a variety of reasons, and we can touch on that later. But I thought, you know what, I'll give her more mental stimulation. That's probably what she's missing. And so the training that we went through with Petco was adult level 1, I think is what they called it.
Okay.
And it was kind of more around just basic, like sit, lay down, that sort of thing. But the thought was that teach her the basics, and at least it'll give her like a fun game to do with some food rewards.
And how did she do in that? Like you said, the trainer had some difficulty, so it was pretty tough.
Yeah, I brought her to one lesson, and there was just like Kaya had no concept of any of it. Like there was a lot of puppies that were getting it really quickly, and Kaya's just didn't understand like why would I sit, that sort of thing. So we had to really build the concept of like do something, get a reward from the ground up, and so the trainer just scheduled like a private session just to like spend time doing it, and we spent 2 hours in Petco just trying to figure it out. So the first thing was like, how do we get her to associate like laying down? We're like, the thought was laying down will be easier than sit because dogs will naturally lay down, and so we really we thought, okay, let's try to like maybe try to kind of like hold her legs up. This was a common thing you do, I guess, at Petco, is if you hold their hind legs, they'll naturally try to like sit down or like lay down.
Oh, okay. And
we tried that, and Kaya would just wheelbarrow. So she just would not lay down. She'd just hold her legs up, like, okay, you're holding my hind legs, but I will not lay down. So that didn't work at all. Then the trainer said we really don't want to force positions because I guess that's just their policy. They don't force positions. Maybe it seems too forceful or it doesn't train them well. But she was like, okay, we're running out of options here. We had tried saying it. We tried like holding the hind legs. Let's just try to gently force a position. And Kaya was not having it. She would not lay down. So what we did is we devised a contraption with a bunch of chairs, and we laid like a trail of treats going under the chairs with the concept that Kaya would have to crawl under them to get it. And so it was kind of working. We got Kaya to lay down once, but Kaya learned that she doesn't actually need to crawl under to get them. She could reach with her neck on all angles, so she basically just stopped doing the whole thing and was just getting the treats. And so the only thing we were able to do that eventually worked was basically get Kaya really bored. So when Kaya got bored, we'd been doing this for like an hour at this point. She would just lie down. We'd give her a ton of rewards, and then she would stay, and we'd just keep talking. Eventually, Kaya would get bored, lay down, and then we'd reward her for it. And eventually, like just doing this for a really long time, we weren't able to actually tell her anything or command her on that day, but we kind of just built this concept that like lay down. She lays down, we say lay down, we give a treat, and we kind of just built that notion that this is a thing that can happen.
So like, how smart is she? Like, because obviously she had a different upbringing than like probably most dogs that anyone adopts. So do you think she's like, I don't know, at least average? Like she's not stupid, right?
Yeah, she's definitely not stupid. I thought she would be a lot smarter because I'm used to huskies being just super smart. She's got that husky stubbornness to her. I think I haven't had a chance to see her intellect yet because she's so shy and so like just so timid that like her intelligence I haven't seen her exercise it a ton. But she's definitely not stupid. I would say she's pretty smart, but she's not the smartest dog I've seen.
Okay. And so how long did you do the training for?
So did the training for a couple months through a bunch of sessions. After that private one, we were able to kind of integrate her with the regular class, and finally got her to lay down. I practiced at home a bunch, and then eventually got her to sit after lay down, and then those were really the big two, and then the rest were just heel, follow, like come, those sort of things.
Okay. And everyone listening, that's Dewey breathing right on me, so he's enjoying the stories. So do you still like work on the? Don't bark. Do you still work on like the commands like regularly?
Yeah, I try to keep them up because I imagine that they're fun for her, or at least interesting. It gives me an excuse. I like to give her treats a lot, so it's
Yeah.
at least I don't feel like like I'm spoiling her.
Yeah. So was it like frustrating for you, like going through all that training? Was it like a lot more than you thought, or were you just kind of like open to whatever needed to be done?
At that point, I had a lot of fun with it. I thought,
Okay.
I was like new to the area. It's not like I had any friends there. I was like, yeah, let me train this dog. That'll be something to do, and it'll be fun. And really, part of the reason is while the training was fun, the experience had been starting to get a little bit stressful. I previously mentioned the separation anxiety, but my whole intention was that I would just leave Kaya home alone, and that she'd be fine on her own. But I came home one day after work, and she had just torn apart the place. And so I had mentioned originally that by having no furniture, my hope was that there would be nothing to destroy. But
Yeah.
she found that you can actually destroy the door frame.
Oh, of
And
course.
so-
Yeah, it's made out of wood.
Yeah, and the blinds. So she tore a bunch of blinds off, and then she started actually taking the basically the door frame apart. She would bite it, and she
Like
started
start like pulling on it,
yeah,
or
so
like
she
chewing on it.
both. So she
Oh,
tore
wow.
the like whatever you would call that board,
The molding.
from the nails. So
Oh, okay.
so she'd actually tear off the frame from the base,
Wow.
and she started clawing her way through the drywall. And this is like kind of stuff that just happened overnight. Is basically she at some point decided like Aaron's gone, I'm alone here. He's never coming back. I need to escape. And so this just started happening. And so it didn't happen the first few nights, and so I kind of felt comfortable with it. But after she built that connection, she had this crazy separation anxiety, and it became a kind of a whole bunch of stuff that I needed to do to try to tackle that. And one of them was the training. I was just hoping
So,
that would
so
help.
she started that fairly soon after you adopted her.
She started it 2 weeks after I adopted her.
Oh, okay, wow. And you mentioned in the very beginning, or maybe before we recorded, but she doesn't play with toys at all.
No, yeah. So she, so this whole like separation anxiety story, I'll describe that and kind of what I was trying to do. So toys were the first thing that I thought of. I was like, okay, well she's chewing on the door frame. She must just be really bored. The problem is that she, like she doesn't play with toys even now. She doesn't really like them. She doesn't really, I guess, understand them. And I'm working on it. I'm trying to get her to like toys because to me that's just a fundamental dog thing.
Yeah.
But especially when I first got her, she didn't even like food that I could tell. So she would go for treats, but she was really difficult because I would try to offer her things like, most dogs, you're eating food, you can give them some of your food and they'll eat it.
Yeah.
But the only thing she would eat would be meat. And
okay.
even when I first got her, she wasn't really that into meat. So she would be the only way you could really reward her was with attention, and she was too afraid to have attention. So
Yeah, it's
I was-
just like the vicious cycle. Yeah.
eventually, as she built trust, she started liking food more, which was good and helpful. But when she was bored, I thought, okay, I'll get her a bunch of toys, and that just didn't work. And so the next thing I tried was I got her a Thunder shirt, which is like a compression jacket for your dog. The concept is that it feels like they're being smothered, and then they won't be as stressed out.
Huh. Never heard of that.
yeah.
That's cool.
So I got her that, and it didn't seem to help. She was still damaging the place, and so I actually had to make a difficult decision I was going to basically to crate her, and this was really hard for me to decide. At the barking lot, you actually sign an agreement that you're not going to crate the dog. So this was basically something I did kind of against what I had agreed to.
They might come through bursting through the windows any second now.
Yeah, so I hope you're not planning to put this online.
Yeah, you have to know me to get this episode. Did they say why? Like, did they give like a good explanation? Like, they just think it's inhumane, or they found that dogs don't do well?
They just think it's inhumane.
Oh,
Basically,
okay.
like they feel that they can get people to rescue these dogs that won't subject them to being in a crate. And that was really my intention, was that I would just let her roam around, but the damage got so excessive that I basically had to make a decision of giving her back, which might have been the right choice, but flash forward now, I don't think would have been the right choice, or trying to crate her for a while.
Was she like attacking the same like door frame?
Yeah, so it was really targeted. It wasn't
in your bedroom or
the front door to get out.
The front door. Okay, yeah. So she knew like this is the way out, so I have to get out.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. I have a friend who he had a dog, and the dog would actually like to sleep in a crate. Like they just had like a crate with the door open, and the dog would sleep there. So
yeah, and that's what I tried. Is I was reading a lot about crate training, and I was and actually one of the reasons I ended up deciding to try to go with the crate was that so at this stage, the damage had occurred. I was taking Kaya through training. I was trying the Thunder Shirt. I basically was listening to Kaya's trainer in terms of what do I try next. And the trainer said, no, crate training is great. It makes them feel safe. Like they're basically it's their safe space. So I was basically put all the, that blanket I had previously mentioned, put that in the crate. I was trying to throw like treats in the crate, basically trying to make it like a positive experience. And yeah, apparently a lot of dogs love it. It ended up being just a horrendous failure in this instance. What started happening is I put her in the crate, and she would actually start just howling nonstop throughout the day, howling and shaking the crate.
So did you start putting her in the crate like when you were home?
Yeah, so I would start, basically she would sleep in the crate. That became her new sleeping spot. I would kind of put her in it while I was around, basically try a lot of the crate training activities. But one of the challenges is that I was going to work every day, and so I didn't really have a ton of time to just keep her around, like comfortable in the crate. So I'd basically put her in the crate when I was off to work, and I'd throw a lot of treats in there, give her a lot of praise, and then leave. And then right when I would leave, she would just begin howling, and I started getting noise complaints actually. And there weren't people being like oh, it's too loud. People actually thought I was abusing this dog.
Oh,
and
wow.
They were really concerned. So I had the landlady call me, basically say and I explained to my landlady, because I ran the approval for getting a dog by her. I explained the situation, but people were really, really nervous about it.
So like at this point, are you like kind of like anxious, frustrated, like because like I can imagine that being super stressful, because like obviously you have the best intentions, and you're like, I'm like, not in an anger way, but you're like, I'm just trying to find the best way to like help you.
It was really stressful actually, because when the crate was sort of my nuclear option, I was like, I'm gonna try a bunch of things, like try different light settings, tried with music, all those sort of options. I was basically doing as much as I could, and then when the damage got too much, I said, okay, well, at least there's a crate. I always knew that was an option. I can get a crate, and like it won't be the best. It'll be for a while, but it'll be fine. She won't be able to do any damage. She'll just be in there, whatever. But then when the howling throughout the day became an issue, then it was like, I don't really know if there'll be anything that I can do that'll like allow me to have this dog in this apartment. And at that point, it had been, I had the dog for a while, and so there was this bond I had, and I felt like, I felt really stressed. I thought this was starting to be with the point where I thought, I might actually have to give this dog back.
And that's kind of like the worst kind of feeling you can have, I think. Like that's where I was at with Dewey, where him and Mikey would kind of get in some scuffles, and I was like, well, Mikey's way stronger than him, so like, and this is Mikey's home, so it's like, are we gonna have to give Dewey up? So yeah, I definitely know that kind of feeling. Would she like try to damage the crate at all?
Yeah, so at some point, the kind of like one of the last renditions of what I had tried, and I had tried a lot of things at this point, is that I would in the morning give her tryptophan chews, basically to help put her to sleep, and I would also give her some wet food with 2 ibuprofens. So this is basically like antihistamines are kind of a drowsiness agent, and I had spoken to her vet about this. You can actually give allergy medication or like pure ibuprofen to dogs, and it'll help with basically help with kind of the drowsiness, putting them to sleep, calming them. And so I give her 2 of those in the dog food. Then I would also actually give her some CBD oil, so tincture for dogs, that I had found from a local store. So I was triple
What are you,
drugged.
from California?
Yes. So basically, I was triple drugging this dog. It sounds worse than it was. It was just kind of like a bunch of calming agents I could give her. I tried to give her the Thunder shirt, but she had actually ripped it apart at this point. She decided she didn't like it, and she tore it to shreds. So I had a pheromone spray that I would keep outside of her crate, and then I would play music in the background. So I was basically trying to try everything that I could do in the crate.
And like, and every combination, and like add all of them at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So this was the final one where I tried each one of them separately, and I was just trying them all together. And I had her in the crate, and it didn't work. Is the spoiler on that? But to your question, did she try to damage the crate? Yeah, and this is actually where it became to me like the biggest problem. So with the howling, the neighbors were really concerned, but I have a really great community. I would leave my key out for anybody who wanted to come in to watch the dog for a little bit, and so they would do that and sit outside the crate, and everybody was really friendly. But the second they leave, the howling would begin. So the howling was something that needed to get taken care of, but was more or less people had accepted at that point. But what happened in the crate was that actually she began to do a few things. She started tearing up the plastic on the bottom.
Yeah, so was it like one of those hard plastic ones?
Yeah, it was a hard plastic bottom, and it was kind of a metal crate.
Oh, okay.
And so she started digging the plastic and biting it, and actually started fracturing it into shards. And so one day I got home, and she had actually cut her paws on clawing through the plastic. And so I basically had to remove the entire plastic bottom and find some other way. So I would basically, after that, I was said, okay, like this is really bad. Like I can't do this. But other things she started doing in addition to damage, like hurting herself on the crate, was she actually started bending the bars of the crate with her face. She would just push through and start bending them, which obviously she would actually start getting scratches on her face trying to do it. And it became really clear. And on top of that, she actually started defecating in the crate because it was so stressful to her. And it became really clear that there was just no way I was gonna, it was really, really cruel at that point. And despite like my best efforts to try to allow, like, make it a calm experience for her and make it fun, leaving toys in there or whatever, it just wasn't gonna work.
How long was she like in this whole crate process? How long was that? Yeah,
the crate process was probably a 3-week odyssey, I would say, where it started out where she would just howl, and it just got worse and worse and worse. So first day I kept her in the crate, it was just the howling, and I was able to take her out. And I thought it would get better, something I should get used to, but pretty much like by week 3 she started hurting herself, and that's when there was really no option. I couldn't keep her in the crate anymore.
So you stopped the crate, then what was the next?
Yeah, so I have this idea while I was pretty much on the last. This was like the last Hail Mary pass, because otherwise there would be no solution. I had asked previously about, like, okay, forget the crate. I really just care that like she's not biting or scratching things, right? So I said, okay, what can I get her a muzzle? And the answer I had pretty much gotten both online and from the trainer was that if you get a dog like that a muzzle, they'll start trying to scratch it off, and they'll end up hurting themselves more. And so I was, there's no option. And I was pretty much just, sitting at work one day being like, I really need to come up with a solution to this. And I had just this most banana land, off-the-wall solution, which is basically thinking, okay, so if she's going to scratch her face, is there anything like mittens I could put on her that would prevent her from damage, like clawing the muzzle off? And so she'd be, in my head, she'd be like almost like an astronaut, just like have like a space helmet on and like giant gloves, and so she would walk around just kind of unable to harm herself or anything, kind of like the straight jacket solution. And so I went to Petco that night after having this idea and said, is this something that would work? they thought I was crazy. First of all, they were like, "I've never heard of this before, and we don't have mittens. We only have cat mittens." And so I said, "What about rain boots?" And they're like, "Yeah, we have dog rain boots." So that night, I actually bought a muzzle for Kaya as well as some rain boots, and then I tried it the next day. I was able to get the muzzle on her, no problem. She actually didn't mind it too much. And I should clarify, this muzzle is not like a strap down muzzle. She can breathe through it. It's like an open cage one. She can eat through it and she can drink through it.
Oh, okay.
And so I put that on her, and then I put the rain boots on, and actually it actually ended up just being a huge success. She stopped howling. She didn't damage anything. She was able to sleep on the bed, eat, drink, and it ended up working just perfectly.
And then you made a product, sold it on Shark Tank, and now you're a billionaire, right?
Well, actually, so that's what this podcast is for. Is go to www.bootsandmuzzle.com. Affiliated.
So how did you affix these rain boots? I don't think I've actually seen dog rain boots.
Yeah, so these little yellow rain boots, and she hated wearing them, I should say. But she didn't hate them like she hated being in the crate. She just found them really uncomfortable. And so what they are is you just kind of put their paws in, and they have this Velcro strap that you can put around it. Like early on when we got it, she figured out how to take them off because she can bite through the muzzle. So she would put them up to her face, and she would tear off the Velcro. And so and this is just the stupidest thing. So I started putting socks over the rain boots, so that she couldn't tear off the Velcro.
Oh, okay, yeah, so like an extra layer.
Yeah, exactly. And so that extra layer, she just couldn't get them off anymore. And you know, she didn't love the rain boots. She walked super funny in them, but she didn't really hate them either. She just kind of is just uncomfortable for her. But actually, after a month of keeping her in muzzle and rain boots, I took off the rain boots, and she was totally fine.
Did you have 4 or just 2?
I had 4 rain boots for her.
Okay. And so were you kind of like telling like your kind of people in your apartment, like you're trying all these different things and kind of getting feedback from them, like, yeah, she didn't howl or she howled less? Like, were you getting that kind of feedback?
Yeah, actually, so the CBD oil tincture, that was from somebody in the apartment. I didn't know that they made that, and they said, "Oh, this thing works wonders for dogs. You need to try it." And so I bought it pretty much that day. People would give all sorts of recommendations. I think the music recommendation was from somebody in the apartment. Somebody else recommended the Thunder shirt. I basically just took it all and tried to work with it.
Yeah, when we first got Mikey, we gave him one of those Kong things, and we'd fill it with peanut butter, and so gave him something to work on when we would go to school.
Yeah, and actually, I bought a Kong for her. That was one of the first toys I bought her, with the bacon cheese spray for the inside. And I thought this would be like a slam dunk because, you know, it's just a puzzle toy. And she sniffed it and never looked at it again. So I ended up returning both.
Yeah, Mikey loved his. Like, if I found it, he would go crazy for it. But yeah, like, I mean, you know, he was a pup at the time, so he was into anything.
And I've learned that there were maybe, you know, in hindsight's 2020, there may be toys I could have gotten her that she would have liked. One thing she does like is frozen bones with the raw meat on them.
Oh, okay.
So I could have maybe that would have a lot helped. It's just like maybe just some raw meats or some butcher bones might have been a little bit better for her.
So how's she doing now with all this kind of stuff? You still have to do.
So she's actually perfect now. She's at home right now without a muzzle or rain boots, and she doesn't damage the house. She's still very excited to see me when I get home, but she knows I'll come back now. And so it was really, I think, after about 4 months, I would say, of kind of me leaving and coming back, she got used to the idea that I would come back, and now she's just great.
And so I don't know how widespread this is, but I know at least in the Bay Area there are some companies that are like open to having people bring their dogs. I assume that wasn't an option.
No, I was really hoping that'd be the case, and so I was looking online pretty early on, like Illumina, do you bring your dog, or can you bring your dog in? And I had asked around the office, and it's just not an option.
I mean, I get it, you know, but like, yeah, that definitely could have saved you some trouble, but
Yeah, I was hoping there'd be a doggy daycare or something, but there was kind of no option like that for my work. I had thought about leaving her in the car, but that sounded even worse. So
Yeah, in the heat. Yeah. Okay, so she's doing good, like, well now though, with all that kind of stuff, with all the being home. That's good. So I totally forgot to ask you this earlier. Were you looking for like male or female, or were you just looking for best fit?
Looking for best fit. I was okay. The dog I grew up with as a child was a lady, and the dog.
Your family's dog is male, right?
Yeah, that's right. So Minnie and Milo were the two dogs.
So you're just up for whatever.
Yeah, I like them. I do find that the male versus female dogs can be really different. And
yeah,
Kaya definitely fits more on the female dog aspect. She's a lot more she's a lot more submissive to me, for instance. A lot less like boisterous or playful. But and maybe I don't know if that's all breeds, but generally I find that boy dogs are very just like playful, run in a room, like want to have fun.
Yeah, for me it's always the concern about being aggressive. Like Dewey wouldn't even hurt a fly, but Mikey sometimes can be a little overbearing in that regard. So what's kind of like your like goal with her? Just to like train her super well? Like I know some people are really into that. Like I remember seeing this guy. He had some sort. I don't remember what it was, but he would like some sort of like toy thing where he would throw it up in like 20 feet in the air, and then it would hit the ground, and then he'd give his dog a command, and the dog would run after it. Like I assume it was like for a hunting kind of purpose. Like, do you care about training super well, or do you just want to have like kind of like a companion?
Yeah, my goal with all the training for her was just so that just to give her like something to do, and also just like kind of have the basics of like, here, sit, have a treat. I'm not really all that interested in having her be just like a super trained dog. I think my goal for her, what I hope to accomplish with her, is that she'll be like great with all people. She's still, we've made a lot of progress with the separation anxiety. She's still frightened of other dogs, although she does better. She's still good with people, although she'll sometimes just run away if somebody approaches her. So she's doing better, but my goal would be that she's just very comfortable, and that you can tell she's a rescue now still. It'd be nice to get to a point where somebody can meet her and have just no idea that she was a rescue. And then in terms of, so that's what I want for her. And then what I want out of it is really just a nice companion that hangs out and chills and watch Netflix with me.
So like when you walk her, do you try to like avoid other dogs, or like cross the street kind of thing, or go in the street?
So with my family dog Milo, when he sees a dog, he goes nuts. He's a Jack Russell Terrier mix, and he just barks and goes crazy. And he's not a particularly aggressive dog. He goes. It's just too much excitement for him. With Kaya, she doesn't take a lot of interest in other dogs. She doesn't bark. She might look at them, but for the most part, I don't have to worry about that. I can walk her.
Okay.
But if a dog is kind of more like Milo, let's say, and wants to like bark and run at her, she will give the warning signs, and it will alarm people, because she has very sharp teeth, and she, her growl just seems aggressive, even though it's just like a stay away from me. So I don't need to worry about it, but I am always cognizant of are people going to let their dog kind of approach her, and how is she going to respond to that?
She's changed a lot though, right? Like it sounds like she's like changed a lot for the better.
Yeah, actually, and I hung out with a friend yesterday who had seen her some time ago, and saw her just yesterday, and he basically said, "Wow, she's starting to act like a dog now." And so she's still a cat-like, but she's slowly kind of getting this kind of dog attributes, like let's play and those sort of things.
Well, that's good to hear. Like I mentioned earlier, dogs to me, they're kind of like the epitome of kind of like happiness and joy, and so it's good to see her or hear her doing a lot better. Do you have any kind of predictions, like a time frame, like, oh, I think she'll be I don't want to say normal, but you know, like all the more there, more adjusted, however you want to phrase it.
I'm hoping in 6 months she'll bring toys up to me to play with. That's my that's my current goal, and I think at that point it'll be she'll just be just a super happy dog. And I think what you said about just dogs being the epitome of happiness is really true. And it's cool because she had a lot of sadness, really. And you know, when you see sad dogs, it's interesting. You can just say that's a sad dog, but it's neat to see that even from her background, she's able to become the happy dog she is now.
Cool. Well, that's glad to hear. Yeah, I hope she continues to do better. I guess one last thing I wanted to ask you is, but you do take her off leash, right? You mentioned that at the beach, and does she like run around or?
Not really. If she gets too far from me, she gets scared still, so she'll come back.
Oh, okay.
But she kind of keeps a pretty healthy perimeter. She goes out on her own. She doesn't really run off after things, but she'll wander and then come back.
Does she go in the water at all?
She hates water. Yeah, that's another one of her cat-like attributes. She will walk around puddles if she sees them, and she's frightened of the rain.
Well, you're in San Diego, so you don't have to worry about that too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having
definitely
me.
Definitely a cool, different perspective from a dog that's fairly different than a lot of the ones we talked about. So is there any, I say this every episode, is there any sort of like thing you want to plug, like, or just kind of like a send off, like words of encouragement or whatever, like a famous quote, I don't know, whatever you want to do, like.
I don't think I have anything. I'll just say dogs are great, and if you're thinking about rescuing a dog, definitely do it.
Cool. Well, thank you for listening. You can follow the show on any platform that I know of. I try to put it on every platform. It's on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. That's a big one. Basically any podcast service, YouTube. There's a Facebook page that posts a link, Twitter. I need to use the Instagram more, but there is one that I created. So you can find that at The Good Boy Pod. If you care to follow me, I am just my name at Ilya Alexiv. And thanks for listening. And rate us. Rating is a good way to increase visibility. So if you enjoy the show, help others find it. So thanks for listening, and keep petting those dogs.